This week's episode brought to you by Mata Italia Pasta. Ciao, io sono Luigi. Here at Mata Italia, we have the best fusilli, the best farfalle, the best ravioli. And if you're down about the fantasy football, remember that it's Tucio Pasta. Enjoy Mata Italia. So good, you want to repeat.
All right. Hello, everyone. And thank you for joining us for another edition of About That Podcast. I'm your host, Neil Blakemore, and with me, as always, is Mr. Luis Cruz. Luis, how you doing today?
Good. I could be better. I'm speaking to the guy who defeated me this week, but I could be better.
Yeah,
good.
I kind of feel bad about that, but I really don't. I thought Zeke might put a 40 burger on me, but it wasn't to be.
In another universe, and then he might have done that.
There you go. There you go. So let's kick it to Cruz here, and let's give him the rundown from some information we have from last week.
Awesome. So we'll start with scores. As I already said, unfortunately, I lost to Neil 109 to 123. We have the Sharks taking out the Brady Bunch 106 to 94. Mata Italia lost to Canadian Tiger 125 to 101. Haitian Killer is looking very strong, 160 to 132 against the Funsies. Tard Nation took out the Hialeah Mafia team, 166 to 118. And above average Ditka, it's joining me with it 0-3 by losing to Team Casa 119 to 95. So if we look at the standings right now, that brings Rob undefeated, 3 games and 3 wins. We have Ricardo with Haitian Killer, the Brewery, the Sharks, Canadian Tiger, Brady Bunch, and Casa, all of them with 2-1. So that is from the 2nd spot to the 7th spot, they're all tied with 2-1. Then you have Hialeah Mafia, the Funsies, and Mata Italia, 8, 9, and 10 with 1 win and 2 losses. And then we have the Lucho Maniacs with 0 wins, 0 wins, and 3 losses, and same thing with average dead cuts. Now we're gonna jump into the rankings, and it's weird. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, you have the guy who's 0-3 in the 2nd spot. We have Haitian Killer number 1. I'm sure he's gonna be happy about this. The Brewery on the 3rd spot. Tard Nation, who it's actually undefeated. It's on the 4th spot. Fancies on the 5th. Then you have Haitian Killer on the 6th. 7 spot for the Sharks. Canadian Tiger, it's at 8. Brady's Bunch at 9. Mata Italia, it's at 10. The Lucho Maniacs at 11. And Team Casa at 12. These are the power rankings for the rest of the season. Okay, so with all of that being said, Commissioner, what do you think of last week?
Well, I mean, myself, I enjoyed last week a lot, right? I got my my 2nd win, which is kind of big. It's going to be difficult catching Ricardo and Tarnation at this point, I think. Like you mentioned with the rankings there, I think it's a bit off having the above average Dickas in at number 2 spot. I think with the Blakemore hierarchy, I'd have probably Haitian Color where he's at, and then I'd have Tarnation. I like the Sharks team myself, and Q's team's pretty good. So kind of in that order, I think, with Haitian Killer and Tarnation being the 1 and 2 spot, respectively, as well. But as far as the matchups last week, yeah, I was happy with my win. Rob put a big whooping on his matchup. So did the Haitian Killer. And I know Cassal's real happy about taking down the above average Dickas. That guy checks his app almost every 20, 30 minutes, which you wouldn't expect that from him, but he is always on that app. So
yeah,
he'll be in the chat. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was a battle of the Andes, you know?
That was.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, and the eldest, the most wise one got that W. So I think it was a good matchup. As I'm looking at the screen now, the Canadian Tiger actually is looking pretty strong. I don't know if he's even checking his lineups. I think he is secretively, but he looks like he's pretty strong as well, putting 125 on it.
Yeah, that's right. I don't think we've heard from Steve this season so far at all, right? I know he's playing, but I don't think we've heard.
Yeah, he's definitely. No, he's definitely playing. I've heard from him privately about fee payment. So he's already paid his fees, so he's definitely in it. But yeah, he's not
Hold
really
on.
active on the
Let's throw
chat, but
some
he's doing
people
well.
under the bus right here, right now. Who hasn't paid?
Uh-huh. I mean, you could probably take a couple of guesses and get them right off the bat.
Well, it's probably you and Stacy, right? Is that what we're
That's
talking
right.
about?
That's right. That of course. Yeah.
Come on, people, pay
I'm
your
not gonna throw
dues.
anybody a bus on week 4. I'm gonna be a nice guy. But
your
they know who they
dues.
are and they'll pay up. They always pay. They always pay.
But you know what? One of the things this week we actually didn't have any close games. I think we've been spoiled with week 1 and 2. We had those crazy close games, and that was very fun. I think maybe our game was the closest, and maybe I now that I see here, Sharks and Brady Bunch were another close game. But then the rest were kind of like they kind of won their games.
Yeah, kind of blowouts. Yeah. Well, the only reason that ours was close is because Zeke had that phenomenal first quarter, and I actually got a little panicked, I must say. But dropping 40 on someone, that's tough. That doesn't happen all the time.
Too many points.
I don't know if you noticed, Cruz. I know you got a great shirt on, and we'll get to the reason why in a second. But my shirt here is the Dunder Mifflin, right? Now, the reason I wore this one, you might like this, is because a person that's 0-3, much like yourself, might ask themselves, what would Michael Scott do? Okay. You're not one to panic. I know you. You're a very calm, easygoing person, but 0-3 is the time to hit the panic button, Cruz?
Like I said earlier today in the chat, I think I have the pieces to get it done. I just have to find the right combination. And Rob replied, "Come shop," which that's very much like Ricardo. So that's interesting that Rob is mixing it up this season. I like that. And I like the fact that he's listening to the podcast. Shout out to Rob and Tar Nation team is doing well. So yeah, what about the trades, man? Is that ever gonna happen? And people just don't trust each other?
I mean, he did get a valid point. Where are the trades so far? I know Rob is always big on the trades. I'm sure he's thrown out a couple trades to some people. I've done some myself. I've gotten denials. But you know how the trades work. We always try to look out for ourselves and not try to make the best fair trade.
So are trades kind of like trying to pick up somebody? You just keep trying, and it's a numbers game, right? You throw all these trades out, one of them will hit.
Depends on who you are, right? But in a perfect world, one's gonna hit. But going back to the Rob now, is Rob the new villain? Because I don't hear much from Ricardo. I mean, Ricardo's crushing it with the scores. One sec, Ricardo's crushing it with the scores, but he's very low energy on the chat, which I'm not liking this year. We'd like Ricardo to get out there and throw some shade, but it tends to be Rob this year. How's that going to work rest of the year? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know, because here's the thing. So for those people who don't know, the place that we work, it's opening up. So I actually have been hanging out with Jesse and Ricardo this week.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. It's tough. It's tough. But I actually told this to Ricardo. Like, I was like, where are you? Where is the Ricardo before the game? He shows up a little bit after, you know? Mm-hmm, so it's like, I know another manager that used to do that, you know, that shows up after. You have to be there before. And then you take the win or you take the loss, but you have to be there before, I think. Yeah, but we'll see. The season's long. Remember that things to remember for this season is that we have an extra game. And this season, we also have 6 teams making the playoffs. So you just have to be, 50%, top 50%, and you get into the playoffs. And then it's just things happen.
Then it's anybody's game. Absolutely. Now, let's do a little segue into next week. I think we had some great matchups last week, but next week's a special week. It's going to be week 4 of our season, and Mr. Cruz is going to explain why this is an important week.
So, like we said at the start of the season, we wanted to make it a little bit special. This is the 10th season that we're doing this, and we wanted to infuse some energy into the league. And one of the things that we're doing is we're doing bi-weekly prizes starting week 4. So this week, we'll give out a prize to the person with the highest scoring game points, essentially. So if you score the highest points this week, you're getting a prize, which is $20. So, hey, that's almost 50% No, yeah, almost 50% of what you put in. So it's a big deal. I mean, you can buy yourself like a burger and a beer maybe, some
In
pasta,
Miami, maybe, yes.
yeah, something like that.
Shout out, shout
Yeah,
out.
some spaghetti, meatballs.
Shout out to the sponsor.
But so again, highest scoring point gets $20. So be on the lookout for that. And we're calling it Rivalry Week. So we've kind of chose the rivalry. Kind of makes a little bit sense. I know that it's not going to make a lot of sense in some aspects, but so we'll talk about that, right, Commissioner? What do you think? So should we explain a little bit of who the teams are?
Let's do that. I mean, Cruz and I came up with some ideas for the rivalry week, and we're just going to run down some of the matchups and the reason we chose this. Right off the bat, I'm looking at is going to be myself versus the Haitian Killer. I think we all know why this is a rivalry. I would like Ricardo to get on the chat and let's talk some trash here, like we used to do in the good old days. But that's not a secret why that's a rival. We've been at each other for 10 plus years. We're both two-time winners, so I think it's a good rivalry. Also, we have Tarnation versus the above average Dickas. Now, on paper, 3-0 versus an 0-3 team doesn't seem much of a rivalry.
I kind of like that, actually. The undefeated against the person who hasn't won a game. That's kind of cool, actually.
That could be good for the underdog week, and that'll be to come in the next podcast or so. But the reason we chose that, they're both my really good friends from a long time ago. So it's kind of the summer George versus the winter George kind of feel. For all the Seinfeld fans, they'll know what I'm talking about. We also have Cruz and Stacy, which is the Lucha Maniacs versus the Funsies. This is a great rivalry, guys. And if you don't know why, they used to work together and were best work marriage friends, if you will. And Cruz, why don't you explain where that shirt's from?
Yeah, so this right here, it's a Secret Santa gift from the Funsies. If I don't misremember, actually, there's a picture. I'll look it up. I think I still have it on, and I'll put it on the chat. She actually gave me tips to how to win fantasy football when she gave me this shirt as well. So that should be fun for her if she ends up losing this week. And throughout the week, I'll post, maybe tomorrow or Thursday, I'll post all the stats that I was able to capture for the rivalry week. But I just like to mess with my friends. I love them to death. I love Neo and Stacy, but I just like messing with them, and I like messing with Stacy because it's fun pushing her buttons, So I'm excited about rivalry week.
There you go. So it's a great rivalry. We also have next up with Monica versus the Sharks. Now, for those of you who don't know, Monica used to be the GM of the hotel, where the Sharks was one of our front desk agents. So we kind of did that as kind of a rivalry because the Sharks really didn't listen to anything that any manager had to say.
He was really the worst employee ever, right?
Well, exactly. I mean, Monica wasn't much better of a GM, so I figure that's kind of where the rivalry will happen. Who
and I mean,
the best manager kind of deal.
And the good thing, again, except for the Fancies, we have the champions playing each other. So it's Monica and Daniel, you and Ricardo. And then Stacy, unfortunately, got a chump.
What can you do? Next up, we'll have the Hialeah Mafia versus Team Cassout. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. This is going to be kind of the youngin, doesn't know really what he's talking about, wet behind the ears, versus our wise, know-it-all statesman. So it's going to be the youngest player in our group versus one of the oldest player in our league. So that's kind of that rivalry there.
That's really an age, though, because Castle is young at heart. I think I might be the oldest in spirit,
That's true. Next up, we have the Tiger versus Brady Bunch. It was kind of the leftovers, so we just put those two together. So we'll try to get them into a rivalry.
Here's the thing. I'm not going to share the stats yet because I think that's fun. But the way I thought about these two, it's the men of the North. I was thinking of Game of Thrones a little bit when I thought of these two, because you have Q from Boston, like he's a Northeast guy, and then you have Steve from the true North, So we're gonna find out who's the true Northman here.
They also used to work at the Park Central.
Yes.
In the restaurant and the hotel. So that'll be one. The cafe versus the hotel. Maybe
Yeah.
they still have a grudge from each other. So that's kind of the rivalry week. And like Cruz said, the owner with the most points this week is going to win that $20. So let's see who's going to do that.
Awesome. So I think that's everything for this week. Thank you for listening. And
one last thing, Cruz, if I may, guys, check your like Cassell does, check your app because this week I'm going to throw out some polls on who do you think is going to win rivalry week, who do you think is going to score the most points. I think it'll just be fun to see what teams we think are going to do the best. So look out for those polls on the apps. All right, guys.
I will be looking. Okay. Well, thank you
anything
guys.
Else?
No, that's it. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Good luck, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.